Hey guys, it's Ben with Ben Terry Farm. And I wanted to make a video today, another video updating you guys on what we're doing. And today I'm out here and we're plowing. You can see the tractor behind me and the plow behind it. And I wanted to kind of talk about plowing a little bit, because if you are a student of farming, if you follow the different arguments amongst organic and regenerative farmers about what improves soil health. I get a shot here for you of the field that I'm plowing. And remember, the last video, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it on the flail chopping of this cover crop. I mean, it was mostly broken down before I flail chopped it because it's been months and months. And this is February. And so a lot of it was broken down, but I wanted to make sure that it was finally chopped up. And you can see this stuff is, it's all chopped up from the flail chopper. Increase the surface area, get it down on the ground where when it rains, you get moisture, which breaks it down even more quickly. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about plowing and the effects it has on the soil. And I think it's important to note that one of the major arguments, I'm going to turn the camera back around here. One of the major arguments of no-till is the destruction of soil structure through tillage. And that is definitely true to some extent. And it's nuanced, though. It's not black and white like they try to make it seem. At least not to me in my lived experience here on the farm. And believe me, I tried no-till organic, and a lot of the guys that are raising crops, cash crops, that are doing no-till without the GMOs and without glyphosate, they're still using an herbicide. And this is one detail they leave out. They really don't talk about much at all. And for good reason, because it doesn't make all the things they're saying seem so great. Because all herbicides are essentially poisoning the plants. And so there's a poison aspect to that. And I tried the no-till for cash crops. I tried it for no-till roller crimping soybeans, and I tried it for no-till roller crimping corn. I actually have a video on Instagram from, it's going on almost 2 years probably. It's back in, it would have been 2021, I believe. If you scroll back down through far enough, you can find it. But I basically showed my, doing that. I tried it. I listened to what they said. There's definitely a lot of merit to what they're saying, but the problem is it's very, very difficult to get complete kill on your cover crop because there's so many different variables in play. And the guys that are doing it and they're continuing to do it, they don't just rely only on the roller crimping. They use some sort of herbicide. They're kind of tight-lipped about it, but to me that's a poison. I don't put any poisons in our soil. So I tried it out. It didn't work. In fact, I had 2 crop failures from doing that. The weeds came up so much and competed and basically they basically shaded out the soybeans. And now we don't grow soybeans anymore. I've changed my mind on soybeans. I don't think that they should really be grown. I talked about in other videos about estrogen mimickers in soy, and for what we're doing, we're feeding it to our animals, and I don't want to eat it either. I don't want that in the eggs, and I don't want that in our poultry and our ducks. But anyway, I tried it and it didn't work. So I went back to tilling, and what I started to do was just really observe for myself what was actually going on here, and not just listen to these guys pushing the no-till. I think you should no-till as much as possible. When possible, where possible, you should be no-tilling. But in order to get a seed bed established in true organic farming, at least for these cash crops I'm growing, like einkorn and peas and corn, which is not the number one thing we do. We also graze. We do a lot of grazing on this farm. We have some perennial pastures. In fact, I'm going to rotate some of these fields we're doing cash crops into it. But what I've seen is that, and I'm going to show you here in a moment, I'm going to turn the camera around, is one of the measures of soil health is how much earthworms you have. It's also about water infiltration. There's so many things that come into play, but what I've noticed is that this field that I'm standing in right now and I'm gonna turn the camera around. When I first took the farm over, I had this in hay for a couple years, and then when I first plowed it, I really didn't see too many earthworms. But now, as I'm going along and plowing, I'm seeing earthworms everywhere. I got also these grubs here, which I'm sure turkeys would love to eat. But I'm seeing earthworms all through the soil, and that's a really good sign. You got little ones and big ones, and they're just all over the place. And I can tell you that when I first started plowing this field, there were hardly any earthworms in here. And now there's earthworms all through it. And I'm not arguing that, no-till would not have better effects and there wouldn't be more earthworms. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that plowing in true organic soil is not that bad. It's not as bad as they make it seem, and I firmly believe that it's better than using these herbicides. Than using the herbicides these guys are using in the no-till. And they're selling this stuff for big bucks. They're calling it, I don't know if they use the word organic, but I mean, it's non-GMO, and they're saying no-till, and like they're making, I would say that their profitability is just as high as organic. But you need to keep that in mind. The other thing is that they talk a lot about erosion, and this field, I've noticed no erosion. And actually, this is a great field to illustrate. Although I don't know how far I'm going to have to walk over here, but we're on a hill, a pretty big hill here. And when I get over here, I'll turn the camera around. And I've noticed no erosion. Now, interestingly, I don't have a shot of it right now, and I should, next time I'm driving past these other farmers' fields, I'm going to turn the camera around here. See, we're on a big hill. I'm not going to guess like the grade, but it's a fairly large, a fairly decent slope. And that valley down there, if we were seeing erosion, I would have tons and tons of soil down in that far end, just piling up down there. And all this stuff up here would be gone. We have basically like a creek bed. I have not noticed that at all. Where I noticed it, I have noticed that a lot in these guys' conventional farming in their fields. I would notice slopes less than that, than this field. And you can see where they planted their winter wheat. And because their soil's dead, there's no life in their soil. They've been spraying with Roundup, using not only Roundup or glyphosate, but other even more hardcore herbicides, using the pesticides, synthetic fertilizers. They've destroyed their soil, and so the soil's dead and it can't hold together. And so you'll see erosion. If you're driving, especially if you live in this area where the farms have a fair amount of hills, the area that I live in, if you just drive, when you're driving down the road and you look, this time of year especially, from November, December, until March, if you look out into the field and you see just a little, it looks like basically they planted grass. That's a cover crop generally, especially if you can see like about 7-inch rows. It's either like a winter wheat or rye or something like that. And honestly, the government pays them to put that in. They don't do it because, it's good for the soil, which it is. They do it because the government pays them per acre to put that stuff in. All the conventional farming is subsidized, guys. It makes it very difficult to compete price-wise. So when you go to the grocery store and you look at this stuff and it's less expensive, it's not because they're more efficient, it's because they're subsidized, okay? They stole tax dollars from all of us, and they gave it to these farmers for growing certain crops that certain companies basically bribe the government to provide these incentives for. But if you go out there and you look at those fields, I always get on side tangents. If you go out and look at those fields, you will notice that in little valleys that you can actually see small creek beds forming, essentially like little gutters forming, where the soil is actually being eroded away. I've never noticed that here on our farm. It doesn't happen because our soil is alive and it does have soil structure, and that's proof right there. It doesn't matter what they say. about guys that are plowing. Now, like I said, it's nuanced. You don't want to be plowing all the time. You don't want to be plowing in the middle of the summer. It's important to plow only during certain times of year, and that is the fall and spring. Now, there's a lot of rainfall then, but like I said, we don't have erosion problems. And the big thing about that is that the soil in the fall and spring is generally more rainfall. The soil gets that precipitation and it stays moist, and so it doesn't kill off as much as the soil microbes as it would if it's dry. And plus, whenever you go through and you do tillage, you don't have it all blowing away in the air. So that's very important. The other important part is that it's cool in the fall and the spring generally, at least here in Pennsylvania where our farm is. It's cool, and so that also provides the microbes of the habitat they want while the soil is being exposed. And then also plow as close as you can to your planting date. You don't want to be plowing way far ahead and let the soil go fallow for any extended period of time. You want to plow maybe a couple weeks ahead. Now, weather dictates that, and for us, we've had a wet winter. I am plowing a little bit earlier than I normally would. I normally try to plow only like 2 weeks before, and now we're probably about 3 weeks before, but we have a good window here and there's rain coming next week. So you kind of have to, decide based on what you see coming in the future, your priorities in the here and now. And so that's why I'm out here doing this. I believe today's the 9th of February. Of course, this thing's time-stamped. Yes, the 9th of February. So that's why I'm out here now about 3 weeks ahead of time. We want to plant our peas the first week of March and get this done now. And so that'll give me opportunity to come back through here and level this out with a cultipacker, and that'll give me a nice seed bed for the peas and for my einkorn. I'm also trying einkorn this spring, which I have not done before. I've only planted it in the fall, but we're going to try some out for the spring here this year. And that was mostly to get basically to avoid some of these weed seeds that have been getting in my einkorn that I haven't been able to clean out. I'm hoping that planting in the spring will avoid them going to seed. So we'll see here. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to talk about that. If you're someone who's heard a lot about no-till, and another interesting fact about these guys promoting only no-till, and like I said, I'm not here to I'm not trying to beat these guys down or anything like that, but it's just not jiving with my experience on the farm. And like I said, I think there's a lot of benefits. You should try to no-till as much as possible, but sometimes I'm gonna turn the camera around again and show you guys. There's just stuff here that is now perennial. Like this came up. I'm not sure what grass this is here, but there's a lot of orchard grass in here, and there's things that just start getting embedded. There's nothing you can do about it. Like I couldn't come through here and even just like lightly disc this or something. It needs to be turned over. There's clover in here. Okay, that's not gonna go away. Like that doesn't winter kill. It's winter hardy. It's just gonna come back. It's gonna compete. Although clover is a good thing. It gives your soil nitrogen. And a lot of these weeds I don't want to call weeds even bad. It's just that when you're trying to grow a cash crop, it's competition. So you need to do as well as you can on each crop. And so another interesting that I was going to talk about before I end this video is that a lot of these guys, especially doing they're only doing pastured or grass-fed beef, and they're doing their pastured chickens. And the beef side's a little different because they don't eat grain, but on the pastured poultry side and the egg side especially, you need to consider the fact that these guys, they talk a lot about how they never ever till, they never ever disturb the soil, and they're able to produce this stuff. But are they really? Because they're all buying feed. Where did the feed come from? It came from someone else's farm who is tilling. Because if they're buying organic feed, which most of the pasture people are buying organic feed, that means someone else's farm is tilling. So they're still supporting tillage heavily because they're buying this stuff in, especially the big operations. They're buying them by the tractor trailer load. Okay, so in some ways, they want to paint this picture that, they have no involvement whatsoever with tillage and, just put it in an extremely bad light, like it should never be done. Their dollars are flowing towards that grain to support it. And my thing is that I think those farms, the solution is for them to take some of that amazing soil that they build up through no-till and pasturing their animals and rotating their animals and building the soil through the animal impact and the depositing of the manure and just all the amazing things that come from the no-till, they should occasionally rotate some of those fields, plow them up and plant some cash crops, grains that they would feed to their chickens and ducks, and keep all that nutrient cycle right there in their farm. But they don't want to, because they want to continue to paint that picture that they're just never involved with this horrific thing called tillage. And I'm just trying to point that out, because we're doing it, and we're doing it because I think it can be a cycle where some of these perennial pastures that we've rotated for years and years can be taken out and grown for cash crops for a couple of years, and then the ones that we're plowing up, we'll put into pasture and rotate it through and have the animals out here and build that soil up. And it's just a rotation. It's a rotation. You can still build the soil, and you can cycle all the nutrients on your farm, because that guy growing those grains, he's not getting the chicken litter. He's not getting that manure put back onto his, all those nutrients that were taken out of the grain growers' fields and put onto the perennial, like the pastured chicken and the pastured eggs on their field. That should be going back to, at least some of it should be going back to the guys growing the grains. That's a true harmonious relationship on the farm. That is where you can truly cycle the nutrients. And I think that these other farms, they really need to start doing it. And the guys growing only grains, they need to start getting animals on their farm. That's the solution, I think. And that's what we're doing. And the other great thing about that is that you can control and you can truly verify for your customers that you know that these grains are the best of the best, and like the meat you're going to be eating from these chickens and the eggs you're going to be eating from these chickens and ducks is the best of the best, because you grew them right there on your own farm. Okay, so I think I'm going to let it there. I think it's a really important discussion to be had, and if you have like any comments or thoughts on it, then please leave them or message me, one or the other. And yeah, guys, just want to keep you updated. Thanks for watching, and if you liked it, then please subscribe and please share. I can't say that enough about the sharing. If you know anyone that's interested in agriculture or just about farming in general, or where their food comes from, then share it with them. I think this information is very important. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and share. See ya.